So our teaching model is a 3-station model. One station is content level, one station is review of the content, and then one station is on Chromebooks where the students are working on MobyMax, which is a review of lessons that they didn't get back in elementary school, and then iExcel is a review of the content that I'm teaching. So basically they're taking my content and making sure that they can do it on their own. I'm presenting new material, and Miss Weakley is going over the material that I taught the previous day to make sure that students are learning what they're supposed to learn. And then the good thing about the middle station is they're making sure that they're staying on track. And if they have any questions, they can ask Miss Weakley the next day about stuff they didn't understand on iExcel. So planning for these lessons basically takes a lot of work. We have to pre-test the kids. We have to look at their map scores, make sure that they're in the right stations together. So we just recently did the map test. We put students in stations based on their map scores. So that supports their learning because they're where they should be, and I can differentiate how I teach them and what I explain and maybe don't explain to certain kids. Like in the video, you saw me with higher level kids that knew a lot more than my previous kids because they were be able to answer questions a lot quicker. So I was asking them more diverse questions, more higher order thinking questions than I was other students because they didn't understand it to the extent that the other kids did. The benefits of co-teaching are students get to see things explained in multiple ways, and they're not sitting in a classroom with 30 other students being bored. They get to move around, they get to try new things every 20 to 25 minutes. It keeps them engaged. We use a lot of other models. Some days all the students will come in and we will do whole group introduction. So what we'll do is me or Miss Weakley or myself will present the material to all the students at the same time, and then what we'll do is my station will be practice over what we just taught them. Miss Weakley's station will be a review of something the day before to help them with the practice, and then the middle station where they're doing Chromebooks, they'll be doing iExcel where they can practice even more. So we're hoping that by the end of the day they'll have that concept down, and then we can introduce other things throughout the week. So what that does is our stations are a little bit shorter because of that time at the beginning of the class. We usually take about 10 to 15 minutes. So our stations go from 27 minutes to right around 22 minutes. Sometimes what we also do is we do whole group MobyMax. So the students come in, they do MobyMax all at the same time, and then we transition into stations. That way they can spend more time in their Chromebook station on maybe iExcel or an activity that I set up like on Google Classroom or whatever like that. So that's basically the models we use for the most part. I'll take the work that my students show me today and I'll say, okay, well, these kids seem like they're getting it, and then these kids are not. So maybe we need to switch the stations, or maybe we need to, I'll focus on these kids while these kids do an extension activity, stuff like that. So we gotta use data. I mean, it's every day, most part. Some days, just depends on what we're doing, but for the most part, we're using data every single day. When we take a map test, we'll regroup the students based on their map score. After that, we will group students based on how they are doing in class. So we probably regroup students every 3 to 4 weeks, I'd say. Change it up a little bit, give them a new partner, someone else they can hear from. It's just good for students to change it up, I think. Miss Weakley and I, we teach differently. The reason that's good is because then she can kind of say, okay, Mr. Varney, I think you should present it this way because my students got it this way, so you should present it this way. And then Miss Weakley might be struggling with something and say, Mr. Varney, I need help with this. If we both taught the same way, I don't think it would work. So I think our success is we both agree that we need to be doing these stations because it helps students, and we teach so much differently that we are actually able to work well together that way. All right, so the barriers that we had to overcome were basically just getting used to what we were doing. We haven't done this before, so that was the biggest barrier. Another barrier was how we were going to group the students. We were going to do 3 stations, we're going to do 4, just 2, whole group every day, trying to make a decision what's best for our students. And I think it goes with the students that we have. We have a population of students that we feel need stations every day for the most part, so that we were able to kind of get that moving pretty quickly. The barriers didn't last long. They were pretty much, after a month, we had it good to go. My group is on content level, so 6th grade content. Miss Weakley's group is either KSI or it's a review of the content. And then the middle station, the Chromebook station, is a variety of things. It could be They're reviewing concepts from back in elementary school. They're practicing the concepts that I taught them in 6th grade. They are doing a variety of things. They could be typing, they could be writing, they could be doing, it just depends on the day. When we come up with our stations, basically, we look at our curriculum map and we say, okay, this is where we're at. This is where we need to be. So I come up with an I can statement. This Weakley says, all right, you're coming up with that. Here's what they didn't understand from the previous thing. I'll go over it, and then we keep moving on.
When they throw in simplest, you've got to remember what you know about simplifying ratios. That the first thing you need to do is you need to do your factor tree. So what two numbers multiply together to give me 6?
2, 3.
Okay. And are either of those numbers prime numbers? They both are, so I can stop there. Now I'm going to break down 12. There are a couple of ways I could break it down. I like 2 times 6. And again, I've got all prime numbers, so I can stop. So 6 is equal to 2 times 3, and 12 is equal to 2 times 2 times 3. What's the same in both rows? So I can circle them so I can see it in this lovely little symbol right here. Come middle school, that means what? Huh? Colon, it's part of a colon. A colon actually looks like this. In math, we're going to say this means multiply. So in order to find my greatest common factor, since I have 2 numbers in the same row, I have to multiply them together. So 2 times 3 gives me 6. Okay, so now I have to go back to my original problem, and I have to divide both parts of my ratio by 6. So 6 divided by 6 gives me
1.
And 12 divided by 6 gives me 6 times what gives me 12? 6 times what gives me 12? So in simplest form, this would be the better answer that I'm looking for. Remember when we talked about how those test takers try to trip you up? They gave you an answer that fit, but there was a better answer to choose from. When they threw in that word simplest, that made this the right answer.
How you doing? You sure?
So again, they threw in that word simplest. I agree with you that it would have started out as 10 to 5. Work on simplifying that one, and let's give you a clean slate to work with.
Gentlemen, what's up? Vendor 1? We're on 4? Okay. All right, I like what I'm seeing. Yes? Okay, that's the price for 1 pound.
Yep.
So how would you figure out how much 2 pounds cost? Okay, let's think about it this way. What do you like to eat, like for snacks? Anything. Yogurt. Okay. Now, when I go buy my wife yogurt, she likes to get those ones that are already in, like 4 of them in a pack, right? So usually she could buy the Chobani strawberry vanilla mixture thing. Okay. 4 of them is like $5. I think it's like $5.99 maybe, or maybe less. Depends on if they're sale. She likes to buy the most expensive ones. So when I buy them it doesn't really matter how much one costs, but if I was gonna buy like 2 packs of them and each one was $5.99, how would I figure out how much 2 packs cost? Add them together, $5.99 plus $5.99. Or what else could you do? Instead of adding it to itself, what else could you do? I mean, you could add it as many times as you needed, depending on how many you're gonna buy, but what do you call repeated addition? Repeated, like repeating something? Repeated addition, what is it? What's another word for that? If I just keep adding the same number to itself multiple times, what's another word for that? What could you do instead? Multiplication, yep. So if you know that 1 pound costs $14.74 and you gotta buy 7 pounds, what could you do to figure out how much it can cost total? Boom-o. Now make sure you keep track of all your information.
Simplify. Everything else will. Okay, what'd you come up with?
$103.
Okay, so that's good here. Look at what I noticed right away. What's my greatest common factor?
5.
So what do I have to do to both numbers in your answer?
Then you restate the question.
5,
And write your answer.
spot on.
The question asks,
So
how
you
much
had,
would it
you
cost?
originally picked 10 to 5, correct?
Cost $103.18.
So if you divide both of those by 5, what would be my better
Necessary
answer?
symbols like the dollar signs. So, question?
Let's see what you got, Corey. I know, I'm sorry.
More.
He plays football, 6 play basketball.
Just 7 pounds would be, oh,
Spot on perfect. Good job.
just mine or yours? Do you want to already sharpen?
So 10 divided by 5 is
You don't make mistakes, so you don't
10. And you're going to divide both of these by 5. So 10 divided by 5 is, and then 5 divided by 1. And how are you going to compare these two? Do you want to use the colon? Do you want to use the word 2, or do you want to make it look like a fraction? Good work. Perfect.
In October, the price was changed to 5 scarves for $22.65. You need to find the unit price, how much one scarf costs in each separate situation. It's similar methods, just different scenarios. Yes.
Number 3.
Okay, read the question.
Scarves.
Scarves.
5 scarves. 22, 65, 13, 35.
Okay, what's the question ask?
Which month did a scarf cost the most?
Yep. How you gonna figure that out? Add what?
Add the 2 numbers.
Nope. Separate months.
No, divide.
Put yourself in this scenario.
Okay.
You're trying to figure out how much these scarves cost, and you don't want to spend more money. You want to spend less money. So, for instance, the question asks, which month did a scarf cost the most? Well, that's the month you don't want to go there and get them. So you need to figure out how much each scarf costs for both months. It tells you how much it costs for a certain amount, but you need to find the unit rate like we just did for each month. These aren't easy questions. That's why we're doing them. We got to test your brain here a little. Oh, I like what I'm seeing. Now I'm gonna make 2 comments. You show your work is good, but it could be better, because when you get your answer, like let's say somebody was grading this, would it be easier on their eyes if they had a circled answer? What do you think? If I was looking at this and I knew what the answer was before I was grading it, and I saw the answer circled, would that tell me that you know what you're doing? Yeah. So what I would recommend to you is when you do your show your work part, circle the correct answer. That's what I'd recommend. All right, people on Chromebooks, you need to sign out, please. People in my station, leave your paper where it is and transition. Let's go. Make sure your name's on your paper. Name's on your paper. Let's go. Once I get your paper from you in my station, you can go to the next one. You know where you sit. If you forgot, let me know. There you go. Well, I guess somebody else's stuff, apparently.
Different skills in that form. I said, can they write ratios? Can they look at a word problem and write a ratio from it? Can they simplify a ratio? Can they look at a ratio and break it down to simplest form? And finally, can they find equivalent ratios? So those were the 3 types of questions that you saw on that assessment. I looked at that last night and I said, okay, here's what Ryan was working on, and here's the thing he was still having difficulty with. And that's what you're going to do over here today. You're going to work on the skill that was still the most difficult for you. Now, some of you may have fallen into the category where you needed a little bit of help on everything. So some of you are going to have some questions that are going to focus on all of the skills.
After I walk you through the first one, the ideas that I talk about, you should be able to use to do the rest. Got it? Okay, so on the first question, it says, number 1, a bookstore was selling 5 books for $27.25. Online, you could buy 6 books for $32.16. Which place has a lower unit price? Now, a unit price is how much one book costs. Okay? So we need to figure out how much one book costs. They don't tell us how much one book costs. They tell us how much 5 books cost and how much 6 books cost. So we've got to break this down. Okay? So I'm going to do that. First thing, in the show part, we're going to do the regular bookstore. So I'm going to write bookstore here. I'm showing my work. So you need to writing this down, please. Regular bookstore. And then about halfway down, I'm going to do my online bookstore. E's are the worst thing to write backwards. My online bookstore, okay? So for my regular bookstore, 5 books costs $27.25. Anybody have any idea how I could figure out how much one book costs? Yes, ma'am. Divide what? And the 5, right? Okay, so let's see what that is. Go ahead and put that in your calculator, unless you think you can do it in your head. 27.25 divided by 5. So 27.25 divided by 5. What's that get? $5.45. Everybody else get that? Alex, did you get that? Logan? Okay, we're good. So one book at the regular bookstore costs $5.45. Okay, so now we're going to do the online bookstore. They have books 6 for $32.16. So again, like Lily said, for the first one, we're going to take the price and we're going to divide it by the number of books. So we're going to take $32.16 divided by 6. Okay, so what's that equal? Once you have an answer and you think you got it, the price divided by the number of books. So $32.16 divided by 6. $5.36. Make sure we're right. I think that's the same. Alex, is that what you got, sir? Okay. Now, the question is asking you which one has the lower price for one book. So which place has the lower price for one book? The regular bookstore or the online bookstore? Online, because it's cheaper, right? So I'm going to circle it. The reason why I'm circling it is because if someone is grading this assignment, or let's say we're on K-Prep or whatever, if you circle your answer, that's going to tell them that you know what you're doing, especially if they already know what the answer is and you got the correct one. All right? Any questions about that part? All right. The tell part on the right-hand side in the box is the part that's the most important in my opinion. You are going to tell me your answer. You are going to tell me your answer and how you got it. So the first thing you're going to do is restate the question. So what's the question ask? Yes, ma'am.
Which place has the lower unit price?
Okay, so how would I restate that?
Like, the online bookstore has the lower unit price because...
You could do it that way. Here would be my suggestion. I don't think your way's wrong. Here would be my suggestion. When you restate the question, basically rewrite the entire question, but change one simple word. If it says which place has the lower unit price, you could just change which to the. The place with the lower unit price is blank. So let's write that. Let's see here, the place with the lower unit price is the online bookstore. Done. The place with the lower, that's supposed to be lower, I kind of ran out of room. Lower unit price is the online bookstore. Because what? Yes. Boom. Because they sold them for a cheaper price. Now, I don't have enough room. But if you want to, if you can, right? Because they sold them for a cheaper price. Done. That's it. That's an excellent answer. If you do that every time, you'll be good to go. Any questions about that? All right. So, what you're going to be doing for the rest of the problem.
Chris, your first one says for every blank stars, there are blank hearts. So fill in that information, and then you can use that to help you answer the question.
By how many you got, figure out how much one costs. You're going to be doing that a lot on this paper. So as long as you can do that, you should be solid. So go ahead and try.
Fill this in for every blank stars, there are blank hearts.
Make sure you're working with your partner, see how it goes, and then we'll go from there.
So yeah, you're spot on here.